Hey BookTube, Chelsea the Reading Outlaw here to do another On My Shelf tag. If you have not watched either of the first two of these, or if you're unfamiliar with the concept, I essentially go to Twitter, ask you guys for a set of numbers, and pull the book off the shelf that corresponds. My numbers go from 1 through 12, which is the number of books I have, and 1 through 25, which is the average number of books on each shelf. You guys are more than generous every time I ask for these numbers, so I have yet another set to get through today. First up is a book that was suggested by Peyton at Payfic on Twitter. That is Shelf 3, Book 23, Red Rising by Pierce Brown. This is the first book in, I think it's now a quartet or a quintet. It started out, in my knowledge, as a trilogy. It is the story of Darrow, who is a Red, who is one of the serving underclasses on the planet Mars. He works all day below the surface to mine the chemicals and to build the infrastructure needed for those living on the surface of Mars, until one day tragedy strikes and his eyes are open to an entirely new world system and some truths about his life that he has to reckon with. He's sent off to a gladiatorial style competition that is loosely based and named around Greek mythological houses. It's dark. It's violent. There's a Lord of the Flies, almost like a battle school aspect to it. I really found it fascinating. I heard some middling things about the rest of the books, or at least the next book, so I never picked it up. But now that it's on book 5, I might have to fix that. I might have to go back to it. My partner really loved this book. It's one of the ones that we first read to talk about together, and I just really like having it on my shelves. I really like the cover design. I really like that it's a book that he and I have both shared. There are not a ton of those. So yeah, that's Red Rising by Pierce Brown. Next up, Kate at Given to Fly gave me the numbers 422, which led to, funny enough, another book that my partner and I have both read and really loved, and that is Lamb by Christopher Moore, The Gospel According to Biff, Christ's Childhood Pal. So, if you are religious and easily offended, if you don't particularly care for blasphemy, I would not recommend picking this book up. Christopher Moore basically uses Biff, our titular character and childhood best friend of Christ, to explain what happens in the missing years of Christ's life. There is a chunk of time between when Christ is an adolescent and when we re-meet him in the Bible at the age of 32, when he's starting his ministry. And this book explores what happens in that time. It also explains what it's like to watch Jesus have a childhood crush, what it's like to watch Jesus fall in love and out of love and to deal with becoming the savior, what it's like for Biff to reckon with the knowledge and ultimate inevitability of his best friend being crucified. This book is really funny if you don't mind blasphemy. It's an interesting historical look. There's some cross-cultural context. Christ does some global exploring, which also gets into some other global cultural religious systems going on at the time. I really recommend this book. I really like this book. I've not read any of Christopher Moore's other stuff, although this book makes me want to. But Lamb has earned its place on my shelf as a forever favorite. Next up, I have 2 books recommended by the same person. This is Cami from @_Adrenaline Rush. The first number is 1225, which gives us Just Mercy by Bryan Stevenson. This is, obviously given the range, the very last book on my shelf. For those of you who don't know, Bryan Stevenson is a lawyer who founded the Equal Justice Initiative, which is a non-for-profit that works to overturn wrongly convicted and malconvicted cases to fight for the rights of the convicted. His first ever case was on behalf of a man named Walter McMillan, who was wrongly convicted of a murder that he did not commit and who spent almost his entire life in prison. It is a look at the way in which the justice system is broken, in which we deny just mercy to people, and who suffers mostly at the hands of that. Spoiler alert, it's not white people. This is a very touching, important, sometimes difficult book that's really beautifully written, and I love what Bryan Stevenson is doing in this book and in his work. And then the next book was Shelf 9, Book 20, The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. Oscar Wilde, favorite homosexual dilettante. writer of plays, books, short stories, political treatise. I absolutely love Oscar Wilde. The Picture of Dorian Gray is one of my winter favorites. I probably would have pulled this off my shelf anyway because we are coming up on spooky book season and I love The Picture of Dorian Gray. If you were not assigned to read it in high school, it is the story of Dorian Gray, a man who seemingly never ages, and the mysterious painting in his attic who nobody is allowed to look at, and where he draws his mysterious power from. It's really great. It's really spooky. It's a delight. This is my like Barnes & Noble Classics edition. It's nothing special. I don't love it. It's got like the weird stock imagery on the cover, but it was a cheap copy of the book that I wanted when I needed to have it. So there you go. Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. Next up, my good friend Carolyn Denise recommended Shelf 7, Book 6, which gives us Bradbury Speaks, Too Soon from the Cave, Too Far from the Stars. Essays on the past, the future, and everything in between. It is exactly what it says on the tin. It is a collection of speeches, introductions to things, essays, various newspaper and magazine contributions from Ray Bradbury. I love Ray Bradbury. I know Ray Bradbury as a person and as a political person can be sometimes problematic, but there is something really melancholic and beautiful about his prose and about the stories he tells and the way he centers them on the mundane and the strange and the magical in the small town. So hearing the words from the man who's created these things are really fascinating. I have not read every essay in this collection, but I love to dabble in and out, especially in the fall when I'm in a Bradburian kind of mood. And then last but not least, we have 2 books that were suggested by Rhea at the Bookfinch, who I love. Hi, Rhea. I'm super, super glad that you gave me these numbers. The first one was Shelf 2, Book 9, which is The Devil's Highway by Luis Alberto Urrea. Luis Alberto Urrea came to speak at my college when I was a sophomore and volunteering with No Mas Muertas, which is No More Deaths, a volunteer organization that I believe still exists to leave water and medical supplies along the migrant zone in the Mexican border, specifically in the Aravaca Desert of New Mexico and Arizona. So, but this is the story of the Devil's Highway, which is basically the coyote-led migrant path up through Mexico and the southern United States into America. This book looks at the dangers of that path, the level of dedication and desperation that's required to set foot on that path, the evil people, the kind people, all the folks along the way who will take advantage or leave succor for those who are on, quote, the Devil's Highway. Luis Alberto Urrea went and did research along the border and spoke to migrant communities to write this book. I am going to read it again. I would like to know if it still stands up or what it's like reading it given the current immigration, quote, crisis, manufactured immigration crisis along the border that the Republicans keep wanting to talk about. But I am really fascinated and have always been fascinated by first-hand accounts of the difficulty of migrating, and especially migrating under the kinds of circumstances of the folks in the Devil's Highway. And then last but not least is Shelf 3, Book 2. This is, oh friends, I have High Voltage Tattoos by Kat Von D. This is her very first ever book. It's weirdly, you hear that? It's puffy. It's a very odd book, but on the inside is basically a collection of various bits and bobs from Kat Von D's life. She talks about her art. There are later on in the book kind of in-depth explanations of some of the tattoos she's done on her more famous clients and why. It's her autobiography. It's the first ever book she wrote. But here's the deal. Here's the deal, friends. Kat Von D, anti-vaxxer, white supremacist, anti-Semite, sex offender, defender, generally not great person. Can't condone, don't buy her makeup anymore. But I still own this book because for a long time, I really admired her and I really looked up to her as a woman, as an artist, as a woman artist in a male-dominated field, as somebody whose art I really enjoy and admire. And it makes me super sad that she's the worst now. So there's that. But all right, friends, that is another set of books from 5 folks who had me pull numbers off my shelves. Thank you for those of you who contributed numbers. If you'd like to contribute numbers, please leave them in the down bar down below. That's also where you can find all the links on social media to come talk books with me. It's also where you can leave me an emoji so that I know that you made it this far into the video, even if you don't have the energy to leave a full comment. All right, guys, until next time, come find me to talk books. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and have happy reading.